So, there could have been some novellas here, but they got all double booked. So I told them, you can go, and I will take up their spot. I'm the track director, if you don't know. Derek Haladuno. I do AI programming. I've done it for the federal government. We were trying to hunt down Bin Laden one time, so I was involved with that. So, and I do it for many other reasons. I can talk about that, but it doesn't matter because we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about stuff that these guys do, and we're going to start at the very end. A first timer. Be nice to him.
No.
Donald
Oh,
Prothero.
Don, too, yeah.
I've been trying to get Donald to come to DragonCon for probably no less than 12 years. About right?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So he has an excuse. He still has an excuse, even though he's here. He's trying to talk himself out of like coming back. He already is. He's trying to like grease me up for that. But tell the people about yourself.
I'm a geologist and paleontologist by training, but I do a lot of different things, and I've written quite a few books, going on 50 now, and about 400 scientific papers. So that's my main area, but I try to be broadly based, and especially when I write books for trade audiences, lay audiences, I try to learn a lot about a lot of things.
Cool. And the next person, if you've been coming to this track, especially the past couple of days, probably know who he is. We'll call him Jim, kind of like a certain starship captain. James Underground.
Hi, I'm Jim Underdown. I'm Executive Director of the Center for Inquiry in Los Angeles. I'm the chair and founder of the CFI Investigations Group, home of the $500,000 Paranormal Challenge, largest in the world at this point. I'm also the host of our CFI's Point of Inquiry podcast, and we do a web series called Skeptalab, The Bunk Stops Here. And that's what I do.
And next up is somebody who's been coming to this track forever now.
Long
Yeah,
time.
when I give you an idea how long, the first time I met him, I got introduced to Tessa, his youngest of his daughters, who she was like knee high to me, and now she's out of school and everything.
Yeah, just graduated college.
Yeah, so that's how long he's been coming. So I think all of you know who Nick Eftimanis is, but I'll let him know.
Yeah, hi. I'm a professor at Penn State University in Homeland Security. I've been so since 2017. Prior to that time, I had a 34-year career in government, which was in the intelligence community, and I did sometimes diplomat as well. About a third of that 34 years was spent overseas.
Yeah, when I met you, you were moving from London to
Japan.
Yeah.
Hi.
So that's crazy. Okay. So here we are
No,
talking
that's
about...
not crazy. Flying in from Tokyo for this, that's crazy.
Yeah, that was, yeah. I've gone from North Asia to here on a nonstop. Even it doesn't matter to this, but if anybody ever done that, it's insane. Because like I went to bed an hour into the flight, I woke up full night's rest, and I still had 11 hours in the air. I'm like,
your management saying, "I'm sorry, you're flying back for what?"
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, so
Don't you know?
I mean, it was a good time when I was there, but the flight was brutal. Okay, so we're going to talk about AI. So so everybody's now can become kind of savvy to the idea of AI beyond we're in DragonCon. Half these people are sci-fi people. So we've talked about AI forever since we were little kids, but now it's kind of bubbling up to like people think, oh God, that may be real now. It always has been, right? In a way. So in your different lines of expertise, I'm not going to say profession because some people, like I would say Jim probably doesn't do it professionally, but he does in a way. What is your thoughts of the explosion in the popularity of it and how it matches people's perception of the reality of it? Does that make any sense? Did I just make word salad?
I'll jump on this.
Okay.
Someone's got to be first.
Yeah, I was going to let you guys figure that out.
I actually pose something similar to my graduate students on this as we talk about AI, and everybody says, the sky is falling. I got it. But I try and get them to think through the problem set and look historically. I mean, in the Industrial Revolution, the French with wooden shoes called sabots, used to throw that into the machinery to try and slow down, to destroy the machinery because they were losing their jobs. hence the name sabotage comes from that. And so, is the world going to come to an end? No, but lots of things are going to change. We've already seen new jobs arising, people teaching how to use AI. If you go online, there are paid jobs like that. There are people selling themselves out as experts already on how to task and use AI. So there'll be, and their jobs going to be lost. There are jobs that are going to be changed and jobs are going to be lost. But it's just an evolution. So I think it's going to be an extraordinary change for the species, actually. I actually think 10 years from now it's just going to be an amazing change that falls on us all. But as of the moment, you're going to have to sit back and take the ride, enjoy the ride, because we are going for one, that's for sure.
We're getting closer to the dream of Star Trek, where people get to do less physical work.
I'm actually going to say yes.
Yeah.
And what I'm more concerned about, to be frank, is people doing less thinking.
Well, there's
I mean,
yeah.
I got to tell you,
That's not saying much now.
No, I have.
Where to go?
You want to have a disagreement, an argument with my eldest daughter, and she'll pull out Google to check me on. Really, it's interesting. You don't know jack about this, about the topic, but you're pulling out Google. So to, I guess, make yourself smart in the next 30 seconds or something like that.
No different than having that delay being a week to check out a book in the library, though. It's a speed thing.
Yeah, but I think it's a reliance thing too.
Yeah, it's a speed thing.
Well, you don't have to have a memory now or be smart or anything like that. You can just walk around with this and say, whatever I get, I'll go.
Going closer to Star Trek, where you don't have to physically do much.
Unless you don't have any Wi-Fi where you are.
Yeah.
Then your brain has to work.
Right, exactly.
You drop your phone.
Yeah.
Or down the toilet.
Give me the phone. Now answer my question.
You go to the public restroom and it's like, oh gosh, it dumped in the toilet.
Well, you mentioned a speed thing. I think this is one of the things that's going to be a little more shocking than changes in the Industrial Revolution. They had decades to go from, steam from, a purely agrarian society to some industry and having machines and steam and all these things do these things. But man, this stuff is happening fast. I know someone very close to me who already lost an editing job almost certainly to ChatGPT. And to be fair, ChatGPT does the editing, the light editing job. Now, don't ask someone to do, to translate Proust or something like that. But, for a simple thing that this person was doing, ChatGPT does a passable job. So no one likes to be, the buggy whip maker who gets put out of the job, but it happened, and it's going to happen fast because we're going to find lots of different applications for this, and some of them are going to be good. It's going to be great for, if you're a doctor in the middle of the Congo or something, and all of a sudden you got to perform an appendectomy that you've never done before, ChatGPT is probably going to be in some position to walk you through a passable version of that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I come at it from an academic perspective, and I've just only begun to face it myself. But most of the time when I'm hearing about it, reading about it, it's mostly my fellow academics are wringing their hands and worrying about pilfered term papers, which is not a new problem. It just had different forms in the past. People just bought term papers, and then, of course, they bought them off the internet in more recent years. Now they're worried that ChatGPT will be creating most of our term papers. What I've seen of it and what I've read about it is that many term papers are very superficial, and so you probably can get by with ChatGPT without knowing too much. But if it's got any content and detail at all, especially if it's supposed to be original, it's very often the case that it makes no sense at all if you're reading it carefully. And so I guess the crucial question is how much are professors really willing to read it carefully to tell if it's nonsense or not? And having read sometimes 150 term papers in 2 days, I tell you it's hard to do that. So that is probably where it's coming out the most. But the big problem is that it just aggregates from all these other sources and does not have that spark of individual intelligence a human has, or original thinking that we might hope for in our students' term papers. So the point being that if you can get that thinking and you're learning something, and the students who don't have it in there, that's the person who's going to have a bad grade on term paper either. Now, for me personally, luckily, I think I've gotten out of that dilemma. And when 2020 came along and everything went online only, all my students disappeared from my site. I grade nothing but term papers. Well, I grade nothing but stuff online. And I realized from my presentations and my advanced courses, there was no way we were going to have individual presentations in person. And I wasn't about to read 300 term papers in a semester. So I switched over to, they do presentations in Zoom or whatever they wish to use to record themselves. And since they're just doing a PowerPoint 5 minutes long in Zoom, there's nothing ChatGPT could do to improve that for them. It's basically how well can they get a decent talk in PowerPoint and record themselves. And then that's much easier to grade for me too. I just watch 5 minutes of each one, I'm done. So I'm probably never going to grade another term paper again. Fingers crossed.
Okay, so, and you just pointed one of the things I was going to say. Yeah, okay, you can complain about ChatGPT doing a paper, but you just mentioned exactly how you get around it.
Right.
It's just it's a shift, right? It's like now that people have to grade papers, like, you know what? Well, to get around your laziness and make you do a presentation.
That's right. Well, I didn't do it because it was ChatGPT,
I know, but
it works as a filter.
Yeah.
Because there's no way to fake it that ChatGPT couldn't help you prepare a very good PowerPoint that you couldn't do
Not
yourself.
yet.
Not yet. Well, but that's
I-
always the thing. That's always the thing.
But they still have to record themselves talking, so that
Right,
part
right.
I get to grade.
That part you get the grade, but you can tell ChatGPT, give me a presentation, a slideshow presentation on subject XYZ, make it about 20 minutes long.
That's a very tiny part of the total grades, how they perform
Well,
counts.
and also, you mentioned that some of it too. It's new, right? So we're talking about something that everybody's freaking about, and it's brand new. And if you've ever read one of those papers all the way through, you can tell.
Yeah.
Right. So what's happening is, are some of these students just preying on the fact that some of those professors are freaking lazy?
Well,
So, because if you actually read these things,
Yeah.
they're impressive that you didn't write it, but they're not impressive if you actually want
themselves,
to.
yeah,
If you really read it, it's not impressive, but it's impressive that you didn't write it and something else did.
But you know what? We're a year.
I'll give
I
it
was
year
gonna
and a half
say,
into
that's-
ChatGPT.
give it
Right
whatever.
now,
10
that's-
years.
It's probably 10 times better next time than last time I looked at it already.
Yeah.
But still, though, right? You're still talking about that, and also how much of this panic is relying on people not using forethought, where you're like, okay, well, you know what? If you're in, but the computer industry, that's what I do. A lot of people are freaking out that, like, well, you can just tell it to program stuff for you. It's like, well, that's true, right? However, well, use your head a little bit. Instead of like you programming, now you're the doctor. You're a doctor for the AI because AI is going to break all the time. They need programmers to fix it. So you're now a doctor rather than a programmer. You have to just shift your skill set a little bit, right? So I'm not sure how you can.
Well, I mean, we're speaking of one dimension of
Yeah.
AI, ChatGPT. When you start, I mean, the whole Hollywood Screen Actors Guild strike
Oh yeah.
has a foundation
Yeah, we
in
didn't get into that yet.
ChatGPT. I mean, if you can create the image of Nick and give him any voice that you want, which you can,
Yeah.
and you can literally create movies and take personalities, behavior. You can rework voice and measure the impact on the audience, on a test
Yeah.
audience, on what the impact of a person's voice is on them in scenes and things. I mean, there's just no question. That whole entertainment industry is going to be dramatically different 10 to 20 years from now than it is now, and they know that, which is why they're sort
Freaking
of
out.
the line. Yep.
yeah.
Well, it's like, what is it? Adobe has a tool that if you give it 5 minutes of anybody's speech, no matter what they say, they can have you say whatever they want you to say, and if you put images into the machine, they can make your face say it, and it's so good that most people wouldn't even know. It's amazing.
Yeah, so there's two parts of the danger of this. One is greedy studio heads grabbing a $60 a day extra's face and then using his or her image forever for free. That's what they're proposing. That's what the studio is saying.
How many people knew that's actually what this whole thing is about?
It's part of it. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so it's
big
about
part,
half people. Yeah, a lot of people didn't know. I tell people that it's like, oh, I thought that was like a money thing. No, it's the future.
It's licensing.
I give them cred for this. It's actually smart for them to do this. If you like entertainment, you want this because going forward, when this ramps up in technology, you don't want everything to be a procedurally generated dungeon entertainment. I mean, we love Diablo 4, 10, 20, but would you want that to be your movie? Like, it's like, so they're trying to get ahead of it. So it's more about what happens when the technology gets even better. So they're not really fighting about what's now. They're really fighting about the future.
Well, the ability to immerse yourself in the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, literally,
that's
put yourself in the movie.
And that's what they're going to go with it.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely. Some of the stuff's going to be cool too.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, let's not forget that. But I mean, look, we at the Center for Inquiry have been in the business of debunking misinformation and disinformation for decades now. And now, I mean, think of the potential consequences of being able to put words in people's mouths that never happened.
Yeah.
So now you could have Richard Dawkins saying, "I no longer believe in evolution." You can have, you could have deathbed confessions from known atheists and just changing everything and throwing doubt into everything. So I just from a debunker standpoint, this avalanche of potential fakery is very troubling, and I'm not sure. I mean, we're all going to have to learn. We on this side are all going to have to learn ways of checking on the veracity of stuff, and it's scary to me now because I don't know anything about it. I know how to debunk a UFO claim or test a psychic or all this other BS. So we're going to have to open up our scope a little bit and learn about the technology.
That said, there is a lot of work going on in AI to identify,
secure it.
Yeah, to identify when something's
the robots
been
when
against
it's
themselves.
become the
Yeah,
AI.
yeah, really. It's,
hire the robots to find the robots.
That's where we are.
So we're basically Battlestar Galactica now. Yeah. We have to find the Cylons using the Cylons.
Yeah, I think like anything, like gunpowder or anything else, there's good and there's bad that's going to come out of this. I do, however, think it's going to be a monumental shift for us all, and it just is. It's when you do the manufacturing applications, add on to that, things like 3D printing and stuff, that you'll also add into that, as well as you just pointed out, the potential for misinformation and disinformation being moved along, and creativity being not only expanded, but then exploited.
Well, how many people here are subscribers to like Creative Cloud on Amazon, on Adobe? Right? How have you played with the new Photoshop AI stuff? Yeah. Now think about what it's going to be next year. That was 1 year, and it's amazing already.
Yeah.
You can just type in, "Oh, I want to." I took a picture of myself the first time I used it. This is what I did. I took a picture of myself. I said, "Put my face in space," and it gave me like 7 options, and they were all good.
Are you the new face on Mars?
I didn't. They didn't give me that one, but I'm like, and I was like, what? I mean, and I'm like, this is version 1, and it's not even out of beta yet.
Yeah. Wow.
So I'm thinking, when this comes out, it's gonna be better, and that's within a year, and then give it like a couple more years, and it'll be like, and Adobe owns like one of the biggest video editing softwares, so you know where this is gonna go. So there's a reason why the strike's going on, right? So they're just gonna say, hey, I will grab whatever movie star I want. Here's his voice. Make a scene, and here's a script, and then there he is, doing his thing.
Yeah, all done inside a computer. Yep.
All inside the computer.
And then when you think of the AI that's going to be used to run things like traffic,
Well, that stuff's gonna be great.
and you have, I mean, your society is going to have such an influx of this. Think about the Internet of Things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe 1 billion devices on it now. 5 years from now, we're looking at 30, 40, 50 billion devices that'll be on the Internet of Things. All being accessed and controlled and manipulated through AI.
Mhm.
You know, same thing with cities, smart police forcing. You know, all the traffic control, all being done through AI. It's really going to be interesting. The
Well,
way,
you know, I tell people all the time, it's like, I cannot wait to just jump in my car, open up Waze, push a button, it drives me where I want to go, and I can read a book and play a game.
yeah.
And also, on top of that, I'll never get into an accident, ever. And people don't realize this part. When they finally crack the nut and we all have self-driving cars, whoever cracks that nut, to me, wins the Nobel Peace Prize, because so many people are not going to die. Because so many people die on the road. That'll never happen again.
And the efficiency of being able to move cars and traffic through roads is just
Your
you know,
your gas
90%
mileage
more
will
efficient,
go
yeah.
to like double, because it'll monitor all that for
No
you.
more gapers blocks. No
Yeah.
more.
Well, because
Yeah.
if you actually
yeah.
people don't realize this when they design, because when I was in my old job, we did civil engineering. So the best you can do is like run simulations to say, oh, this is the best way to do traffic. Program the lights this way and that way, but you have to rely on people using the road rules, but nobody does. So traffic is because people drive like crap. That's all it is. Okay, so once it's self-driving, cars are trains.
Right.
Yeah.
You can make adjustments for age, things like that. You won't even have to make those
No.
adjustments now because the AI will take over.
Yeah.
And if they're all talking to each other.
Yeah.
Right.
So you just put it in Waze, and then
Yeah.
the car's never going to go faster than the speed limit. But, you know, if everybody drove the speed limit, we'd all go everywhere faster, no matter how much you think speeding is going to help you, because it doesn't. There's a great book, if you want to hear about this. Read a book called Traffic. It'll make you go, oh, I just drive slow. It doesn't matter. It doesn't. They've done the math. It doesn't matter. You can't
Yeah.
speed and get anywhere much faster, more than like 3 minutes. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah. They've done testing on that too.
Oh yeah,
That's amazing.
Doesn't matter. Just be nice and get there safe.
Now, on the other side of this paradise look that you've gotten into things like traffic
Yeah.
in your home and things, the other side of that is
Skynet.
yeah,
Okay, now we're okay. So that's the
Hold
next.
on.
That's the next phase of AI, right? That's
Yeah.
the
Before you
scary
even-
stuff.
no, the scary stuff is well before you get there, and
Oh,
that's I shouldn't use this phraseology, but people like me existing across the world and saying, "Hey, that's pretty good. Let me make everybody in New York City crash into each other." And they're just as you see now with cybercrime, there are just a host of individuals, groups, and nation states that would absolutely love to do it. Oh, your nuclear power systems, great. Let's make them all go off at the same. Those types of things, and because you have all these what they call actuators going on the Internet of Things, all these sensors and controllers going on the Internet of Things. Oh, really?
PLCs, programming logic controllers. Yeah, that's what they're called. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, my world are called actuators. But
I did that for 20 years.
No, good to know. Let me go back and correct the Defense Department. Should warmly welcome my input.
Well, they are actuators, but that's not what the thing that controls is called a PLC.
Okay. So just long story made short, and I don't know a company yet that really takes security seriously.
There are.
Yeah, if they are, it's because they're associated with the government. The government put down rules and said, if you're doing business with us, you have to do. Things like actuators and building cameras and things like that.
True, but I will tell you, something blew my mind. So, because of the pandemic, the company I used to work for shifted, and then I've been doing contracts, because until recently there was no such thing as full-time jobs that were worth anything. And my last 2 contracts were with international banking. One was Fiserv, which, to give you an idea how big they are, the last earnings call, the CEO of the company started with this phrase, and it's scary, and it's true. He even said, it was on C-SPAN, and he said, I got words, I can actually officially say this, it's not a lie. If you're a human being on the face of the planet Earth, I don't know where else they would be, but okay. And you've made a financial transaction not using cash, including Antarctica, you've used Fiserv software. Everybody on the planet who's made a financial transaction not using cash, use their software. How's that a monopoly? I don't know. But anyway, I worked for that company for a little while. And then the other one was Jack Henry, who's kind of the same thing, but it's for credit unions. Okay. Now, they love the fact that nobody's even become a thousandaire by hacking a bank. It's movie magic. It never happens. So I wouldn't be too concerned about security because the people that are good about security will figure that crap out. And I know. And
But we're talking about the apples and oranges here.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about cybersecurity as if you're protecting data. I'm talking about things like how many of your cameras come from China? All of them, right? All the your surveillance cameras come from there. So many. The supply chain is so weak in this, and the updates are so.
So you're worried about like the firmware inside?
Yeah. I'm working about the actuators.
Oh yeah.
Okay, but as a vulnerability.
Okay, but like so when I worked at Brown Caldwell, we were required to like reprogram all those with our own firmware for security.
Well, but for the average person here going to buy that stuff.
Oh no, these people are screwed.
Yeah. I mean, and you heard it here first, folks.
Something very comforting to know.
Yeah, you just have to. Y'all have to become programmers for firmware of IOC's products.
I was on the Defense Science Board, and one of the studies that we did was on the Internet of Things. Right?
Yeah.
And it's just everything has a wireless built into it. I mean, the scanners at your airports and all have wireless built into them. And even though the government orders and says, no, we don't want that wireless available, we don't have the well, they don't take out the wireless, they just shut it off.
Turn it off.
So and what you do when you turn around is you find this by the hundreds of thousands throughout buildings, throughout offices, all this stuff, and that's just the place that should be secure.
Yeah.
That's just the critical infrastructure of the country. Forget when you start talking about. Once again, you're screwed. I mean, forget when you talk about just your homes and cars and things like that, and all the and the lighting systems that have to go on the streets and all that stuff like that. It's another huge issue that as we advance the technology and push that off to AI, that we're going to have to deal with.
Well, I think you just described something though that should give everybody hope, right? What he just said is what I believe is going to happen. It just shifts, right? So now. You just created millions of jobs.
Right. True.
So that's what's going to happen. It's going to shift.
It millions of what kind of jobs?
It's cyber and cybersecurity jobs and people that go out and take software.
What percentage of the public can do that?
But not only that. But it's not just the cybersecurity part. Now it's like people have to learn how to like. Oh look, I want to do like actuator, programming. I want to do firmware programming rather than, game programming.
No, but your point is well taken. What part of the population can do that?
How many college courses in actuator programming are out there right now?
Probably
it's going to grow. It is going to grow.
But
that's
it already
still
has.
Gonna, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, but there is an issue of access to education in this country as it is.
Yeah.
Right, and we have to think about that. Yes, there are more jobs, but it's not going to go to a big, broad spectrum of society as easily as you'd like.
Well, it's funny because, there's a certain side of the aisle that doesn't like it when we give people education.
Yes, indeed.
It's like, oh, look, we were giving people money back because they got scammed and conned. Well, no, don't do that. They got illegally scammed. It's not we're giving money. People don't understand that. We're not giving money away. We're saying you got screwed, and the people who screwed you, they're not getting punished, but we're just going to make sure you're not screwed. It's like, okay, not quite sure this is the best way to do it, but, these things are a problem, right? So then, then you go to Trump University and spend all the money to learn how to do ChatGPT, and then you don't even get an education. Or whatever, you're at university, because those things, it's not just his. A lot of them do it. Go to a real college. Just don't.
I'm not getting into this conversation.
Let's go to a real one.
Because I'm like that close to saying, yeah, well, can we double your tax payments to cover those losses?
Yes, let's double them. I agree.
There you go.
That'll solve some of the problems. Some of it.
Yeah, I'm saying no from if you're taking my vote on it.
No, there's ways to do it. There's better ways to do that. We've already done it. I could prove it using local government. So.
I think the point getting down to this is that we do have an educational shift. I mean, my humanities professors are going nuts as it is now, just because of the drop you see in political science and public administration in all the humanities.
Yeah.
And because we are evolving to a place, look, let's face it, hard sciences and And engineering is a wave in the future in this country. And we're either going to educate our people to, into those positions, or we're going to import them. That's bottom line.
Those areas have always been
Well,
full employment compared to
we can-
most.
Yes.
More so now than ever. Yeah.
And
we can also say that we have a weirdness here in America where everybody in the world sends all their students here because our college system is the best,
Yeah, and then they go back home usually.
and they go home. And I'm sure he's dealt with that on his, national security stuff, because I'm sure that's a problem too.
yeah, it's going to be an interesting
Yeah,
ride, as I say.
Well,
What we're
I
gonna
mean,
do with this.
he has sent me cases of espionage, and a lot of them are people straight out of our colleges that end up
Right.
working for some place, and then they're sending secret coding stuff,
Trade
the
secrets
coding
and
that
coding.
goes on the wing of a jet plane. You think that's a small thing, but it's not.
Yeah.
And these things happen, and that's a problem.
This sort of touches on a point that we were talking about earlier. Say, oh well, this editing jobs will go away, because Chat GPT can do routine editing. Now, in my field, either writing or editing, or especially writing a scientific paper in paleontology, never can be done by GPT at the moment. For the moment, there isn't enough literature for it to learn from, and it requires
good point.
original content where you're looking at something new that's never existed before. So that's still going to require a human thing. But a second part of that was someone say, oh, well, they could not editing books anymore. And I deal with this all the time as a book author. In the old days, it was always shipped off to some copy editor who worked freelance. And I could be usually pretty happy that the copy editor was, fluent in native fluency in English.
Well, you're kind of young. In my day, the copy editor actually worked at the press.
No, they're all freelance, or at least they had been freelance for quite a while. They don't sit in the offices anymore. They're freelance, and generally speaking, in the past, it's always been someone who's native fluent in English, usually American English, and they're well enough educated. They know almost all the grammar rules that ChatGPT knows, but they also know about the weird things that ChatGPT doesn't do well. And so you can rely on them to do the right job. I've had publishers recently who've gotten around this by, instead of going to ChatGPT, they send it to India.
Yeah.
And and for other things like typesetting, they go to Thailand or Singapore. And there they can exploit the prevalence of English speakers with the cheap cost of labor. And what happens from my end is I get this copy edit job on a book I just finished, and it's garbled because their command of English is not that great, or even if they're good English speakers in India, their command of the technical aspects of what I'm writing is not enough that they don't realize they just messed up what I wrote, that they don't understand the subtleties. And I don't know if that's ChatGPT will replace that, but I would love to see it replaced.
Actually, that leads to a really interesting question, I think. If you take ChatGPT in the U.S. and then take it in China and Russia or India,
yeah,
and ask it the same question, do they all come up with the same answer?
Pull up a VPN. We could do it now.
I don't know how to slate it for China. And the reason that I would ask is because countries necessarily restrict data, that they become available to that. So
in the end, in the back end, it's just search engines, so they've got to have access to whatever search engines they have it to.
So,
some of the stuff Don does is you would think would be pretty safe. I mean, if you're a paleontologist or a geologist or someone who has to actually go out and see things and discover things and start with that, you would think that's safe at least for a while.
The computer can't do that job. Marching up and down outcrops is a little hard for a computer at the moment.
I mean, maybe someday a robot will be able to do some of that stuff, but I don't know if.
sorry.
Well, I've seen people now with the technology on their phones do amazing, data collection. I was trained 40 years ago to do field mapping with, bare bones compass and a little bit of technology, but not much. And most of the students I was teaching field mapping to before I left that college are now doing it all with GPS and all the rest. But at the same token, even in the U.S., there'll be times where I was looking for just information online on an outcrop I was driving by. There's no Wi-Fi. So in the remote parts of the country, it's still a big problem. A lot of people don't have that access. There are cell towers everywhere, especially in the rugged, rocky parts of the country. Or if you're deep in a canyon, you don't get cell reception.
Yeah, but we see this starting to change with the low Earth orbit. Elon Musk.
Should reach most people. Yeah.
Right. So, again, fast forward 10, 15, 20 years, and the economic base is there to cover a lot of the
Right.
planet. I mean, that's why it's being done.
But at the moment, my in-laws who live in rural Kansas can't get anything. They have
And-
no
and-
cell reception.
And the irony there is if you're in the road nowhere in India, you get 5G perfectly. Funny, right? And, But
Yeah.
I'm not kidding.
Yeah,
They do.
no, that's right.
Yeah,
We
a lot
don't
of
have-
countries went from nothing
To
to
everything.
5G. Yeah.
It's so much
Right.
better than us because, well, but that's just because we're old. Like, our infrastructure was not.
Yeah, we have legacy
We
infrastructure.
have legacy, so it's all there. So, I don't know, a lot of people here have probably been coming to the track forever. You might remember a long time ago, we did a panel on, because it just came out, Amazon's Mechanical Turk. And everybody was freaking out the same way. Does everybody know what Mechanical Turk is?
No.
Really? Oh, I would imagine. I would have thought like mostly the hands would go up. Mechanical Turk. It is Amazon farms out people in places where they don't have jobs, and you type in what you need, and Amazon goes finds people, and you say, okay, I have a boatload of images. Tag them. Tell me the colors, what they're made from. Oh, then, and also here's another tab group. Give me prices on all this, and they'll get back to you within like 5 or 10 minutes. And it should take, if it was you, it would take you days, because they just send it out to like countries where people are poor, and they all they do is sit there with Amazon, and they take all those things in, and they do all that work for you, and they send it back to you, and it's cheap. I use it all the time. I $5 I can get like everything tagged, like no problem at all. It's been around for like 15 years. Has anybody ever used one of those applications where you send a picture and then like instantly it tells you all the different places on the internet where you can buy it? Well, those types of things,
photo
right?
search and image search.
Yeah, okay. Most of the time, believe it or not, they're using Mechanical Turk.
Ah.
Because, image stuff isn't as good as a human. And so a human somewhere, you don't know where, Myanmar, you don't know. It just did a search and then sent you back exactly that image, what it is, and that's how that happens.
Yeah.
Less and less as AI gets better.
But they do that with logos and
Yeah.
all sorts of design stuff. And
Yeah.
And it also has its flaws too. I've done Google image searches and discovered that almost all the labels on this or that prehistoric creature are outdated and wrong because they copied it from some outdated source.
Or the guy in Mechanical Turk didn't know.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of things people don't realize. Like for a while, and they got rid of this on Amazon. Amazon used to have this thing where you snap a picture, and they would send you back how much it would cost because they would find the item in their inventory, and that was all Mechanical Turk. That's actually how I got introduced to it. I was like, how is it doing this? Because I don't know. So I had to figure it out. And when I found out, and you can sign up for it. Anybody can do it. You can look up on Amazon, type in Mechanical Turk, and you can sign up for an account. And if you want to make, $5 tonight, you can tag images for 6 hours, and you can do it. If you're desperate for
Sounds like a deal.
a pepperoni,
Yeah, if you have no use of your time.
food court.
Well, we've been shipping out crappy jobs forever, though.
Yeah.
I mean, that's since people figured out that there were people somewhere else who would do a job cheaper, they send whole industries overseas or over the river or wherever.
So I only bring up the Mechanical Turk thing for an example of we actually at this track when Mechanical Turk first came out, we actually had a whole discussion about it. People were freaking out like we are with ChatGPT. So it could just be that again, right? It could be like you see all these ways that the world could end, but in the reality is nobody wants that job.
I think fear, as we say, is the future.
Oh yeah,
because you don't know, and that's what tends to give us
What
all
was that
fear,
whole
right?
thing from Dune? Yeah, the mind killer. Fear.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
Oh, really? I was thinking Buddhist, but okay, I'll take your word for it. But it is, it's you're not fearful of things that happened in the past or things that have just happened to you. You're fearful of what you don't know, what will come down the pipe. I don't think this is going to be horrific, but it is going to be an earth shaker. And
I think
you have winners and losers.
Yeah, what we're going to have to be a little careful about in the future, and what we might see this on the moon or on some other planets, when we start creating intelligences and machines that can continually replicate other machines.
Well, we could do that now.
Well,
That's how anything that has a processor. That's how it's done. You realize that?
no, I mean,
as of like 5 years ago, humans do not design processors anymore. They can't. They're all designed by computers.
but humans are still intimately involved in the whole process.
Not as much as you think.
Well,
Skynet is here.
see how long the factories work if everybody goes home and doesn't come
I'm talking
back.
about that, the manual part, yeah, but I'm saying like, the actual innovation of the processors.
No, and that's all I'm talking about.
They replicate themselves now.
I'm talking about everybody goes home and the thing keeps going.
Star
And
Trek.
it's got its own, it's got its own energy supplies. It's got it's mining it. I mean, some of this might work out to our advantage on the moon or on Mars or somewhere, or even here, if we screw up the environment continually.
So it'll work to our advantage then. So keep trying.
Yeah. So this is my only
Are you
fear.
leading to like Highlander 2 here? What's happening?
Yeah.
No, my only, and this is, hopefully I'll be long dead before we really have to worry about this, but there has to be safeguards built in,
Asimov.
to so that you don't give too much unlimited control to the intelligence.
Oh, it's a sci-fi trope from like before I was born.
Exactly. Well, but now it's real. Asimov was conjecture. This is
He
really
also helped
happening.
design the Hyatt too. So if you didn't know.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
no. This is all just let's make sure there's always a plug that we can pull on these son of a bitchin'
Well, you know what,
machines.
That's actually a good thing that legislation is being considered and discussed and debated as to finding the edges of the envelope for AI. I'm not so much worried about pulling the
I
plug.
was involved with that in '96 in the federal government. But we were talking about like the fact that the internet, because right then it was like the internet was still.
Right.
It went from this thing geeks were on, and then in '96, '97, '98, everybody started. Home computers got cheap enough, and then everybody's on the internet, and everybody's like, "Well, what's going to happen?" So there was like freaking out that Google one didn't exist yet, but they're like, "Well, what are we going to do?" So they actually were talking about how do we design the internet trunks so that we can, from the White House, push a button and cut off the internet to the world, and they decided not to.
China decided to.
China's decided to. We decided not to.
Yeah, I think the other issues that are privacy is an extraordinary issue when you start looking at AI. I mean, more so I think than pulling the plug, which is most definitely an issue. But I think for all our privacies. I mean, I don't know if you've ever hired a service to run and check you out. There's a whole heck of a lot that they pull up about you. It's just amazing.
Well, the first time I got my security clearance was before the internet was big, and they still knew like the name of my childhood dog.
Yeah.
I freaked out. I was like, "How do you even know that?" And the names were like my friends back when I was 7 years old. It's like, and the internet was still like baby.
And actually, as you point out, it just created a whole new career field, open source intelligence.
Yeah.
For us, people just use AI, which
we got 16 minutes, so we have a microphone. Line up against it if you want to like talk to us about crazy stuff.
It's certainly tougher to be a criminal than it ever was in some ways. If they really want to catch you.
I mean, some things are easier, some things are a lot harder.
Okay, you guys, we got to start.
All right. First up.
Hi, I'm Robin. I'm a doctor, and
I'm going to record your voice right now. Hold on.
when ChatGPT came out, my husband joked that it was my boyfriend because I was constantly messaging with it, because I work in wound care, which is a field that there's not a lot of colleagues, there's not a lot of us around. And so I was trying to weed through all the research and everything. And honestly, he just failed me. And he's failed me since he started. And he's progressively
Is this your husband or ChatGPT you're talking about?
ChatGPT.
Oh, okay.
Does he is a boy and he is my boyfriend. That is what we've decided.
Does your husband see how you use ChatGPT?
Yeah,
You
he's
should
like,
leave it up. How to get rid of my husband, how to get away with murder. Just just to
but
see what
like
he says.
Undetected.
every time, so like I keep trying to tell it, like, hey, I'm a doctor. Talk to me like a colleague. Like, what is this? And then I use like, does this specific medication, I name it, harm wound healing? And it'll give me like a tiny little spiel, and then it'll say, if you think that you want to harm yourself, here's a suicide line. And it
Oh,
does
that's
it
cool.
every time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
but
I'm
I mean,
like, so then I had to change to inhibit. And then it's like, oh, this is all this information about this drug, but I couldn't find this one line. I was like, I only wanted the one line. Like, why did you give me all of this information when I just said, does it inhibit or stimulate? Yes or no, give me resources. And it every time, and it's gotten worse. And I saw an
Yeah.
article recently that it has gotten significantly worse in solving math.
Yes.
Like simple and complex math problems went from 90% accuracy to now 30%
Right,
accuracy
27. Yeah.
by interacting with humans.
yeah.
Like I ask it, how many days ago was February 2nd, 2023 from today? And it'll tell me 30 days. And I'm like, no. I know for a fact that it's not 30 days. That's why I'm asking you, because
Well,
I can
it
do
only
that
goes up
math.
to like 2021, right?
Right. No. Well, there's a Bing add-on.
Okay. All right.
So like it's with Bing and ChatGPT. That is the most promising one that I've been
Yeah,
using because they're
is
both
Bard
of them,
is actually
and
their
they're
version,
both
right?
failing.
Yeah, theirs version's
So-
Bard, right? I believe.
Huh?
You're talking about the new their version's Bard, I think.
No.
That's Google. Oh, I know they all
No,
have
it's
different names now.
Bing. It's a Bing.
Oh, Bing. Oh,
Bing.
okay.
Bing.
Okay.
They early paired with ChatGPT.
I read that article too, by the way, where they talked about its inability to just do simple math at this point. And I thought the response was interesting that they said, well, it's another iteration. We keep iterating this and opening up new data sources. So I don't know, but I think from the company's perspective, I mean, not great for us, but for the company's perspective, they're still working through a lot of the glitches, and probably for the next year.
Well, there's also that artifact that happens because of how regenerative AI works. I guarantee you they're going to get better at the filtering.
Yeah.
Because right now, it takes everything, even if it's crap data.
It literally has provided me with false.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes up stuff.
Like it makes up stuff within seconds, like it knows it. And I look it up and I literally read just the first line of the abstract. And like, that doesn't say what you say. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry. Thank you for telling me. You're right. It actually says this. And I'm like, no, again, it doesn't say that.
Still
And it's like,
wrong.
I'm sorry. You're right. It actually says this. After like the 5th try, it now tells me the correct thing. And I'm just like, I can't trust you anymore. And I thought this was great that I finally had a colleague that I could talk. And that's what I think is what will be amazing about it and brings us to Star Trek. Because if you see in Star Trek, doctors, like right now, we have to have specialty on specialty on specialty on specialty because there's too much information for us to know. When I was in med school, the doctor who was teaching us also taught my mother in med school. And we were doing, and we were doing this round table thing. And we asked one question, and I looked it up real quick, and I had the answer in a minute. And he's like, that's amazing to watch because he's seen through years. He's like, it would have taken a week and a half of 3 of us in the library to find that information out, which is why we have people that are in the geriatric area that are mad that doctors don't know anything anymore. I have to go to this specialist, this specialist, this specialist. There's too much to know. Like we only had 1 drug for heart failure 5 years ago. Now we have 15 or like, so having the ability to not have to memorize all the little things about this is what acidosis does. All of these things aren't really something that a doctor has to need, but we are just walking computers. In Star Trek, we're not a walking computer anymore. We're a surgeon. We're a scientist who's able to create a cure of a new thing by using all the AI and the technology. That is.
Are we going to get to a point where we don't need you?
I'm
I
a
say
surgeon,
that seriously.
so
I
you
mean,
can't replace me yet.
right, a surgeon I get. Yet. But do we get to a point where I look in the in a sensor system and it takes everything from the IRs, take heat spheres, and it can take blood samples and things like that. I feel 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it
It
spits
just
out, hey,
pushes
Nick,
us.
you
It
most
pushes
likely
us to
have
do
this.
something different. It pushes us to do something more. Now that we have an AI that can say all of these drugs are the reason why you have this side effect, and we need to get rid of this thing. Now we can actually teach preventative medicine. Now we can actually teach why are you going in the mental health, going in the trauma. We can go deeper into things that we never been able to do because we're constantly battling with the having to be the remote memory. And it's very I hope it happens in the next 10 years, but I was very disappointed by ChatGPT. And and then also on that note, with my disappointment, I became terrified when I heard about Skyborg.
Oh,
So could you talk about Skyborg?
I can't. I don't know what it is.
So
What's
the
Skyborg?
Air Force has decided to put the two worst names, Skynet and the
Yeah.
Borg, together
Oh, cool.
and create an AI wingman for their pilots that is supposed to do constant surveillance and help them have a wingman, but it's an AI and they claim it's like an R2D2, but it's going to be flying with all of them, and then they're eventually going to have weapons on it, and then it can fight and win a dogfight with a human before they can even react.
Yeah, this is the what's really happening behind the last new version of Maverick. And they talked about like the pilots being replaced. What she's talking about is that.
What, when
And
the
they're working on,
F-30
and believe it or not, a lot of that's being done here in Atlanta, Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
Look this up. It's creepy, and it's true. It's creepy. They're putting brains in dishes, and they're growing these networks because electronics aren't as good as neurons, and they've actually figured out how to create brains in dishes and then use those as processors.
Okay, but I'm not going to be seeing a brain flying in a jet. I'm pretty confident of that.
No, it's a co-pilot.
I know. Well,
it's Goose. It's not
Well,
Maverick.
but you know what? This isn't.
Brain is my co-pilot.
Have you ever seen a brain?
Yeah.
It's-
But I'm just saying, like that's what
yeah.
she's talking about.
The actually years ago, the F-35 came out. And Air Force and Navy both said this is going to be the last piloted aircraft that we have. And a plane pulls G's, a pilot passes out. That. In fact, we have constricting suits that constrict to pump the blood back up to your brain to wake the person up. Because you pull so many G's in these things. So I mean, it's inevitably the next step. So that's going to be
These
easy.
drones are doing most of the aerial warfare these days anyway, especially in Ukraine.
Yeah,
so.
that's Ukraine. What do they know? I mean, no, they don't have F-22s. If you had F-22s, they'd make quick work of the drones.
Yeah, your next cousin's going to be a brain in a dish that flies.
All right, first I wanted to say to the lady before me that you need to hire someone from what Derek was talking about to put all the papers you need into ChatGPT in your account.
There you go.
Because that will do it.
It will. It will.
I use ChatGPT every day. I'm a grant writer, and I write grants for a nonprofit that works with homeless youth. I've been writing grants for 22 years. And what ChatGPT allows me to do is what my brain used to do, where you take old grants, you cut them down into their parts, and then you synthesize them into new information. What I have found interesting is that we had to review grants. Our organization is part of, in the Mackenzie Scott Yield Foundation, where she's giving out $250 million. First of all, she's changing the world of philanthropy. Jeff Bezos' ex-wife.
I have to say.
Okay, yes.
Who she is.
She gives charities money and doesn't ask them what they've done with it. Yeah. She lets them use it as...
Hey, we got to start a charity.
She vets them.
Doesn't ask them.
She vets them deeply beforehand and then trusts them to use what it needs. So what I found interesting was we submitted our grant, and then we have to, because there's so many that want this money, we have to review 5 other grants, right? So we're reviewing 5 of our competitors. And seeing 5 different grants from organizations all around the country, what you start to realize is that people who write good grants, like people who are good grant writers, is not an indicator of people who are doing needed nonprofit services. It's completely different. And ChatGPT has the opportunity to reduce the barriers to nonprofit money for people who are doing different work. People who are academic, like what I joke about with ChatGPT is ChatGPT allows me, a person with a bachelor's degree, to talk like an academic. And your people sociology not like a real. I'm sorry, that's horrible. That's not what I
Not
mean.
real, like real.
Not a real academic, a sociologist.
I am terrible. I am so sorry.
I was a
Okay.
dropout, so I got nothing.
I am going to be killed.
Boom, ding, ding, ding,
People are
you
going
win
to
the
kill me
prize.
later. All right. But what I'm saying is that in the world of nonprofit human services, sociology is the science that you use, right? You're using medical science. That's what nonprofit services use. So it allows you to speak like someone with a master's degree or a PhD. So the foundation people who have already read academic papers hear that same language, and especially if you're using the buzzwords, like it's no longer childhood trauma, it's adverse childhood experiences. And I'm just telling you that, like, what it's going to do is it's going to allow organizations that are doing very good work but have no idea how to talk to rich white people.
That's a unique way of phrasing that. Let's get on to the next.
It's probably going to level a lot of playing fields. Like
yeah,
that.
and
It's
actually,
it's a tool.
One
it's
of
no
the
different than like the handgun with level people made everybody equal.
the hundreds of
That's
millions
right.
that Department of Homeland Security gives out in grants every year. One of the biggest problems they face is that the local governments who were trying to compete for this money had no idea how to write a grant.
Oh, no,
The
they don't.
complexities
They
that
don't.
involve, they have no idea. So hopefully that will be a leveling
My
factor.
old company actually got hired to do that many times.
Really?
Yeah.
Ma'am?
You're not named Ann, are you?
I think she's through with us, yes.
All right.
Yes.
No, I'm named Ann too.
Man,
Anyway.
he said.
I was just wondering if you would speculate on how quickly self-driving cars would be banned the first time some moron makes a car bomb out of a Tesla.
People do that
Because
already.
somebody will do it.
They're not going to ban it. It's a
not
pretty
gonna.
expensive car bomb, number one.
Use an old Pinto would be a better
Not
choice.
Yeah,
only
what-
that, like I mean, I'm not kidding about this. If when they crack that nut, whoever does it should win the Nobel Peace Prize, hands down, because the number of people who die on the road will plummet.
Right. We had there was something interesting in Afghanistan that we were outfitting troops with, and that was the ability to do spectroscopy, right? To look at a spectrum of a vehicle approaching a front gate, and with a handheld device to look at that, to be able to see if you could see trace elements, and the system would alarm you if you saw trace elements of explosives, like on the door handles or anything that leaked out, which everything leaks out in an explosive, and it would warn the gate guard immediately. So a thing 50 yards away, that was pulling up, they'd start shooting them up way earlier. So they wouldn't get close to the front gate. So it strikes me in the example of the Tesla, you could do a lot of things like that. I mean, you could have them on cars, you could have them on street corners. If those were issues, we already have biodetector sensors in cities, in dozens of U.S. cities, to detect biological agents. So, detecting explosive agents, just like they do at the airport, but you can do it at a distance, is an easy fix for things like that.
Well, that technology was NASA because that's how they determined like if there's
Right.
water on a planet somewhere.
Okay,
It's the same technology.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Related to the AI cars. Also, could you comment about, there was this recent video of some firefighters in San Francisco, and they had this AI car that kept getting in the way. And at some point, the firefighters started treating the car like a dog, telling it, stay.
Have you seen
He
that?
didn't know what to do with it.
Oh, I have
but-
not seen that.
Okay, go look for it. It was very amusing.
Yeah, I have not seen this. Sounds
Okay.
cool.
There are a couple of cases where reports of Teslas that were not being controlled anymore, and they stopped in the middle of things, and no one could start them or stop them, and they were blocking traffic. And so, yeah, there's some issues still.
Yeah. There are going to be a lot of issues for the next 10 years.
Yeah, these are all glitches
Right.
in a transitioning technology that it just comes with
I
the
mean,
territory.
so
Yeah.
and here's the example, right? So like when you fly in a jet, the pilot's there for your benefit.
Yes.
The
Yeah.
commercial jet flies itself. The pilot is there just in case something bad happens. They don't do anything.
But no, it's not so much of a glitch as that as they develop the AI cars, it's something they have to
It's
program them for how people are going
Yeah,
to start
uh,
dealing with them
you know how
when
fast that'll happen?
when this car or
It's
something.
probably fixed by now.
yeah.
I'm not kidding. I'm not being
No.
joking. I'm not flipping about that.
Yeah.
I bet you they figured that out already within
Okay.
like a couple days.
So they'll start
programmer
acting like dogs.
was like,
It's just hard to
Okay.
anticipate every eventuality at this point, and
And as they get them, they'll deal with it one by one.
there's a really good book about air traffic control and how long it took to get to where we are now, which is like if a plane crashes, it's like why? Because that shouldn't happen. Because it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen.
especially because of air traffic control
Yeah.
issues.
Yeah.
Right.
And it took us a long time to get there. I mean, when's the last time you heard about an American airline that's crashed somewhere in the country? When I was a kid, it happened a couple times a year.
Yeah, you got to say that before I fly, right?
But now it doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, okay. That's not my luck.
You probably won't die in
So,
a
do you want
plane
to wrap
crash.
this up?
Yeah, it's time to go because it's red and 0. I think we're dead. If it were a video game, I think we're done. So thank you everybody for coming. There was quite a few of you. We don't know because we are lit.
I'll be here again at 8:30 tonight for those who want to hear me talk about UFOs and aliens. So
That's their solo cup.
And how much you believe in them?
oh, that's another question.